Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today, Create.com talks with Linda Girls, the president of Lifewater Canada. If you haven't heard of it, they work to provide safe drinking water and improve hygiene in Liberia, Nigeria, Kenya, and Haiti. If you're new here to this podcast, remember to press subscribe on YouTube or your podcast app. Now, hi, Linda, and welcome.
Hi, Dani. How are you?
I'm great, and you? How are you? Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to talk to you today. And I'm really eager to learn more about you guys. But to get us started, let's talk about the origin story of Lifewater Canada and what was the driving force behind its mission.
Well, it kind of started out a tragedy. My husband was a hydrogeologist for the Canadian government, working with groundwater all his career. And in the 90s, he was diagnosed with an eye condition that would render him blind. So plan A of retiring and then, giving back to the world to try and make it a better place kind of went down the tubes at that point, and he had to think of plan B. Plan B determined was, he was good at water. He was working with water in Canada, so why not expand that to being able to relieve some of the suffering that's caused from only having poor water to drink. So he worked towards that. And the short version of a long story is Lifewater Canada was birthed. That was in the mid-90s. He started out in Kenya and in Liberia. And in those days, the World Wide Web wasn't a thing. You had a series of, numbers, and, you kind of haphazardly typed those in, and maybe you found a website, and, it wasn't as Mr. Google hadn't really made its hit, right? So they found themselves in Liberia smack in the middle of the Civil War, and which was pretty surprising. There were some very hairy trips and some dicey moments. But the end result was a team of local people were trained. Drill rig was provided, all of that with many miracles of financial provisions and stuff. It was just brand new concept, and Lifewater, the way that we work evolved, and it became very clear that it wasn't something that you could do in a one-time thing. The people on the ground, especially in Liberia, where civil war was brutal, and they lost education, they lost everything. That you couldn't just, go in, do this thing, and then, good to go, go forth and prosper. It just wasn't going to happen. They needed ongoing support, and so that need really firmed who we are, and our mandate to train and equip and provide support for our overseas partners. And if it wants to be viable and a healthy baby and grow into adulthood, it needs to be pretty consistent and supportive input without making them dependent. Colonialism made the nations dependent, and they're all breaking out of that, trying to find their own strength, and we're there to help them with that, and it's been challenging, but wow, what a outcome from that stance. They are now our three nations in Africa, and our nation in Haiti are incredibly vibrant, passionate. They are standing on their own. They've got their own vision. They're passionate to be able to walk in what they know and meet the needs that they see on the ground. And we're there to do what we can to support them in that, and to give them the flexibility to be able to go with it and run. It's extremely inspiring and exciting to watch these local nations just grow and become efficient in what they're doing. It's very, very cool.
It is really amazing, actually. I have never experienced that, but for what you say, it really makes us think about the sense of independency, obviously, and to be able to provide their own basic resources. And I really want to talk about this because I think that maybe some part of our audience is not fully aware of how complex that might be. I think we are all so used to having clean water running from the tap. We just need to, push something or open the tap and it gets to us. But in some places, it's really, really hard. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of understanding your context about the countries that you work on? What is the need? How hard it is? What are the challenges to get access to clean water and proper sanitation?
Each nation has its own struggles, for sure. They're unique to them, but there's a common thread that goes through each one. Because of the G4 and the focus of the world to have some goals to provide water and sanitation. There's been a study by the United Nations that just came out this year. It's like 2.6 billion people. That's like 26% of the world's population don't have access to safe drinking water. And not only that, but 46% don't have access to basic sanitation. So you combine poor water, shallow dug wells, open defecation, tropical rains. Liberia, for an example, gets 16 to 17 feet of rain in a year. That all that feces just washes into their open dug wells, and typhoid, cholera, it's a daily common problem, deadly. The water sources that the nations where we work in, a common river, mud hole, take a saucer and dig in a river bed that's dry, hoping to get some sort of water, that we wouldn't entertain washing our clothes with. Like it just, but they're drinking it. It is heart-wrenching to see. I've seen babies that have contracted, diarrheal diseases from the water that they've been given and dying, and knowing that people don't have the even basic education that would help prevent that. Even if they contract the disease, they die of dehydration because the only thing that they have to give them is dirty water again. So basic hygiene education, teaching about oral rehydration solutions that they can make themselves, all of those things are saving lives. And I think what we do and what we support our teams in doing is unbelievably effective, where lives are changed, health is improved. There's some ripple effects of educational improvements, some sidearms of what we're doing in the hygiene that's causing massive changes in girls' educations, improved test scores, diminished pregnancies. There's unwanted pregnancies. There is the stories could take hours to tell of the improvements and the things that we can do with simple education and providing safe water.
Wow. I again, it's something that I keep wondering about, the challenges and how is possible to live a full life like this. And then when you say there is a ripple effect, it makes complete sense. It is really vital to have access to such a basic thing. And with all of this, I think my next question needs to be, how exactly do you work in there? What do you do? Are you still connected mainly to building wells and teaching them teaching locals, people that live there, how to do that? Or your programs go over this?
I think it goes back to the, what we, our stake in the ground, what we bind ourselves to, how we are our beacon that we are led by. And that's equipping and training the local people to do what they see is needed for their nations. So as far as what we do here on the ground, we are facilitators. And we are really, I look at us as a bridge. So people that have the capacity to give, they don't always know who to give to. and they can come to us, and we will help them find a place to put their funding towards that's going to make the biggest impact. So that in part is part of what we do on this side of the work. On the national side of the work, the people on the ground, they are autonomous. They work, have their own administration, they're partners, and we work together closely in partnership to try and support them in administrative things, trying to help them with their technological issues, be that computers and, you know, those kind of communication tools, or with rigs and trucks and vehicles and the technological kind of equipment that they need to get out to what they're doing. Right now, we have developed a new kind of rig. Okay, the basic principle of drilling has not been altered, but our premise always has been do the easy ones first. Right? You know, the need is absolutely overwhelming. You can get derailed with so much need. But if we focus on doing the easy ones first to reach the most, then, you know, we're accomplishing our goals. So what we're working now, we've in the last year, we just finished our fiscal year, and we went from 600 people on a well, which is way too many, to 400 people on a well on average. Just still, in my opinion, way too many. You think about getting a 5-gallon pail of water and you need about 3 a day. That's about 40 to 50 pumps, you know, up, down, up, down, up, down. That takes time, right? You get 400 or 600 or more people on one pump. It's a long queue. There's no bathrooms. You're waiting a long time. You know what happens. You have people that are, I'm in a hurry, got to go, got things to do, places to go, and the little ones that are collecting water, because it is a women and child kind of task, they'll get pushed aside. People get irritated and angry. You know, there's fights that break out. Like it is not a solution to have so many people on the well, as well as it wears a pump out. It's a basic tool. Like it's like a brakes on your car. You use your brakes hard, you're going to wear your brake pads out. You need to replace them. And it's the same kind of thing with the pump. So our goal is to try and now make sure there's enough water points for a group, for a village, but also to make the difficult ones easy. And so we've stepped into another phase now, where the people that have been forgotten, the people that have been unattainable because the infrastructure is so bad. Roads are horrendous. We can't get a big rig in there. It just won't handle. The bridges are made with twigs. Like it's not possible. We have portable rigs, but they can't drill in the hard rock. So they can get dismantled and go on the back of a motorcycle if they have to, but they don't have the capacity or the power to drill in hard rock. So we've just finished developing with Lone Star out of Texas to make a rig that's we've chosen an Azusa truck, so it's got 4 off-road capacity, very flexible wheelbase, narrow, that can handle the bad roads, going in the rivers, you know, climb up rocks. Like it is much more a greater capacity of getting into the hinterlands, and we are now starting to outfit our teams with this rig and technology so that they can start now to get into the difficult places and meet those people groups that have been forgotten. It's very exciting. Our teams are thrilled to be able to, they see the suffering, but now they've got a tool that they can get in there and meet that suffering and make a solution for it. They're thrilled. It's very cool.
This is actually really amazing. I was honest. I understand when you say that 400 people per well, it's a way too many, and obviously the consequences of it are complicated to do. But a reduction of 200 people, you know, being able to drill more holes, this makes a quite significant impact, I would say. So it's really impressive, this whole thing. And I'm just going to take a second here to think about the whole complexity of it all and how you're being able to overcome it. It's really, really amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. It's not, we're a team, right? You know, so it requires close teamwork. It requires really diligent work on the partnerships.
Absolutely. And those partnerships are absolutely vital. And thinking about partnerships, I just want to pin back to something that you mentioned before about autonomy and your role as a facilitator, right? As a bridge. And I gotta keep thinking here about the ways that you can actually be a facilitator and not just, the sole owner of the knowledge. Because still, with all the connections that we have in technologies, it's easier to get in touch with people, of course. But this is something that I'm really curious about. Are you actually able to give the local communities this autonomy over the process of I'm going to put it that way, but you correct me if I'm wrong, but giving them some autonomy to provide their own sustainable water supplies? Can you actually now give them this ability to do it for themselves, or you still need to be completely involved on it? How things are in this perspective right now?
Well, it's a process, right?
Also,
From the beginning to now has been 20, going on 27 years of process. So it was much more hands-on and pretty tightly controlled in the beginning. It's COVID actually changed a lot of how it looks. My husband passing 3.5 years ago changed a lot of how Lifewater functioned because he was a driller, he was a water guy. I'm a nurse, but I felt impassioned and led to carry on after he passed. And of course, it's going to look different. And more so, it wasn't. I mean, it's a sad thing he passed, but it wasn't a bad thing for Lifewater in as much as between that and COVID, the opportunity to provide and help from a distance became just so much clearer, and the outcome was so much more visible at the response of the teams. They were ready, and they rose to the challenge. They started to, because we were so focused on making good partnership, they started to look for us. How can we help you? Because in some ways here in Canada we're a bit of a bottleneck. They're ready to fly, and we're now looking at 500 plus projects coming in a month. That's a lot of processing on this end. That's a lot of communicating with the donors. That's a lot of fundraising to try and find money to support their work. And we have a little bit of a break on them as far as what they can do because we need to have money to be able to support their work. We pay per product, so that's an advantage, a reward for them. In as much as they work hard, they earn. They don't work hard, they see the difference in their revenue, and in what they can do and how much they can reach their people. So COVID's been fairly good to us. We found all kinds of different ways to communicate with them. We were able to provide them with tools like smartphones, programs, apps on their phones to, be able to record the GPS coordinates so we can document where every project is. We're developing digital tools for them so that they can record all the data that's necessary, because we've started to really concentrate on collecting information so that we can have a better, accurate assessment as to the outcome and report that to our donors. So all of those things they're seeing, they're having a bigger hand in. We have Africans uploading on the website all the projects. So they're looking overall at all of everybody's work. Right now, I have Dan and his wife Shar are off. They leave today to go to Kenya. And it's our first ever international conference for our 3 African nations. And we have representatives coming from all 3 nations into Kenya, and they're hoping there to see the new rig that just arrived and practice on it It's a rig that Liberia is hoping to purchase. They've already saved significant towards it, because we don't just give them the tools. They have to, have ownership. They save towards their equipment and stuff. We match a 1-to-1 for support for their implements. But this is a really cool thing that they can share. Each nation share their expertise, right? They all have different strengths. And so now they get to, to just brainstorm. Well, how do you do this? How do I do that? How do you do this? Right? It's an incredibly exciting opportunity that's happening right now. And I think that, it will impassion them and be like a catalyst to give them the, further their vision of what they can do.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. And it is exciting to see this whole change happening and they taking ownership over that. And now, Linda, sadly, for our last question for you today, for the listeners that got inspired by your work, how can they get involved and support Lifewater Canada?
Well, as I mentioned before, we're kind of a conduit. So if you have a heart that wants to make a difference, but doesn't want to just give aid, but would rather give a hand up and help local people meet the needs of their own nation, then giving a donation will accomplish that. It supports their work. To do that doesn't always necessarily have to be money. Let's face it, not all of us are flush, and but it can be a spreading the word. It can be sharing the news with your church or your coworkers. I've got a government organization in Waterloo. She makes cookies, and at coffee break, people put money in for the cookies. Doesn't generate a whole bunch, but you know what? Every dollar gives a child water for a year. So you get $100. That's 100 children that have water. It can be impactful. I've got a lady that loves to do works of blessing, and so she'll go to seniors and some of her friends that are kind of getting on in years, and she'll wash their windows, or she'll clean up their gardens, or I've got people that do marathons, celebrate their birthdays. Like our family does, we don't give Christmas gifts anymore. We give donations to Lifewater, and that generates funds for many wells every year. And I have one fella, he had for whatever reason, 52 was an important year for him. And so for his 52nd birthday, he challenged his friends to give $1,000 towards Lifewater. We raised enough for 10 wells. It's like $5,200 a well, and that's across the board is about our average Canadian. And that's water for hundreds of people for like years. So there's lots of ways like that don't always necessarily make your pocket a little thinner, but can really help strengthen the work of the people overseas.
Absolutely. And if you're listening right now and want to help or want to know more about Lifewater Canada, go to their website, which is lifewater.ca. You can find it on the description of this episode, both on YouTube or in your podcast app. Get in touch, reach out, and please help out if you can. Linda, thank you so much. This was a great conversation.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. You too. And for everybody listening also, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this episode, press subscribe on YouTube or on your podcast app, because that shows the algorithms that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the Lifewater Canada. Bye, and I'll see you in the next episode.